you want to start with reffing down here, or do you want to build up to it?
Yeah, let's start with roughing down here.
All right, so let's go to what happened last night in CONCACAF Champions League. And,
Yeah.
we don't even have to stay. And basically, Coco and Will have already dialed this one up. They're ready to go here. The incident that happened with Alejandro Bedoya in the second/third minute, depending on when you were looking at your graphic from Big FOX. To me, red is red. I don't care. I understand the whole idea of temperature and trying to set a tone and all of those kinds of things. But I know it's a difficult balance sometimes for refs to sit there and go, red is red. I don't care what's on the clock. And then sitting there going, I know what the clock says. I probably shouldn't do it right now. What's going through minds? First off, what's going through your mind as you saw what Bedoya did last night? And walk us through this idea of setting the temperature of the room versus you got to do what you got to do.
Well, I think we can just get out of the way first that if that had been an Atlanta United player, the entire team would have been kicked out of the league. So, I think we know that. I think that it was. Yes, we consider timing of events in the game. Because it's I don't want to say a normal foul. It was absolutely a reckless, just terrible challenge. I think that obviously Fisher, it was Drew Fisher, right? Yeah, it was Fisher. I'm pretty sure was considering the fact that it was so early in the game, but it was. Yeah, that's a red card. Like, it's really hard for me to not, because it's not. He didn't even get the ball. He didn't get even part of like the cleat or the foot. He got straight up in that area in between your ankle and your shin guard. Man, that was dirty. I mean, I don't know what else you expect from a Philadelphia team. They don't know how to play clean. So that also is kind of one of those things where it's like, as a referee, that Philly plays in a manner that leads to red cards.
Yeah.
And I understand it was the second minute, but man, it's a red card.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has to be. And here's the question I have for you, Bart, because this is where I get a little angsty about things, and I think that it's pretty clear what Philadelphia does, which is they play hyper physical / dirty ball in the first half when they know refs are not exactly eager to throw cards because they're trying to keep match integrity, right? And in the second half, they throw themselves on the ground.
Yes, absolutely.
Like it's like pro wrestling or something. Should officials bear any responsibility for seeing this as an organization, like seeing this as an organization and saying, guys, we can't keep allowing this. We need to start calling this crap early. Is it on the refs or is it on the league to put pressure on Philly saying behind the scenes, guys, cut this crap out? Seriously. Whose job
Well,
is
I mean, it clearly hasn't, those conversations clearly haven't taken place, right? Because as you pointed out, this has been their pattern for forever. And yes, Rich, sorry, we're talking about it. Y'all did a bad thing last night. Like, stop doing bad things. We'll stop talking about you doing bad things. I don't know. Maybe there's a solution. Because to Nick's point, it's consistent, right? But even the foul last night, that was outside of what is normal Philly physicality. That's a red card challenge. That wasn't just being physical. That was absolutely a red card challenge from Bedoya. He was lucky to finish the game. I mean, obviously, they still finished the game with a man less, but it does need to have. I think referees need to be more aware of it, Nick. That's the conversation that I think Pro needs to be having. That I think is justifiably a criticism of Pro. They don't. I do think the organization is not doing a good enough job to officiate Major League Soccer, right? Because that is different than what what IFAB says soccer is. Like, we have all these laws of the game. We have 17 of them, but every league is going to be slightly different. Every circumstance is, every league has its own set of circumstances, and I'm with you. Like that these are conversations that should be had among the officiating crews of just like, hey, be on the lookout. Philly likes to do this. I think that is, we talked about it when we played Red Bulls. They got a persistent infringement card in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that you should be doing, because it's very clear that certain teams in this league play in this style.
So then, Bart, let me ask you this. Since we're in reffing down here now, Jared Smith joins us for the final.
Hi, Jared.
Hey, buddy.
There was one time when Dr. Joe Matchnick was giving a speech, and he was discussing the rules of the game, and he had a copy of those rules in his hand with him at the lectern. And as he was discussing the rules of the game, and I'm paraphrasing basically, Dr. Joe took the book, and since it was a soft cover, he basically took the book and bent the book back and forth and said that while these are the rules of the game, the book itself moves back and forth, and you can sit there, you can navigate the book, and it's not as rigid as it would be as if it was a hardcover book. When it comes to the rules of the game, do you view it as more, and those that are around you, do you view it, or should others view it, as a hardcover book or as a paperback?
So my thing is, you always have to pick your battles. And every referee is going to be a little different on what they are rigid about and what they're flexible about. And every situation is different. For example, when I am refereeing adult leagues and the goalkeeper takes their goal kick and the ball's not fully at rest, am I going to be like, hey, take that again? It was slightly moving. No, we're all over the age of 30. We're just trying to play soccer. We're not that concerned about the ball being fully at rest for a goal kick where, it is just not as important. Another one that I think we may have talked about, but we do see all the time, is the actual position of where a throw-in should happen.
Yeah.
Right? How often do you see a player take a throw-in 5 to 10 yards from where the ball is?
Literally every high school game I've ever seen.
Right, absolutely. So those are things that you're flexible with, right? Again, are you really going to be that picky? I forget who our referee was in our last home game, but he was very picky about where the throw-ins were being taken. But most referees, it's not a battle, right, that we need to fight.
Wasn't it Drew?
No, I don't think it was Drew.
Oh, hang on. I'll double check it.
I think it may have been Victor Rivas. I'm not
whoever
entirely
it was in the Memphis U.S. Open Cup game. He was there for him.
Yeah, he was. I actually thought that referee was okay for that level.
Let's see. Joe Dickerson was in Nashville. So going back to week 9. Let's see. It was scanning to the bottom. This is the beauty of pro. Yeah, it was Victor Rivas.
Okay.
Victor Rivas was your rest. Drew was your 4th. Kevin Stott was your VAR.
Yeah, so that makes sense. Yeah, Victor Rivas was very picky about that. But, that may have also been something that he just saw in that game, and it happened once, and now we're calling it. So to your point, though, yeah, the book is supposed to be flexible. The laws of the game are flexible. The best equation, I would say, is if we all know that the speed limit on 285 is about 65 miles an hour. None of us go 65 miles an hour on 285. We're either going 5 miles an hour or we're going 90. There's no in between. So that is an example, a real life example of the law. The likelihood you get pulled over necessarily for doing more than 65 on 285 is very low, unless you're egregiously breaking that law. That said, if you're going 75 and they pull you over, well, you don't really have any options. It happens. So, yeah, there are some things. That red card should have been a red card, but you consider all the factors. It was the second minute. It probably was like the first foul, first real foul of the game. Those things do come into consideration, because you have to manage the match for 90 minutes, not just the moment you're in there. You know, you're also in a semifinal of a tournament competition. Like there's so many factors and considerations to take in that moment that, yeah, you do have some flexibility.
Jared Smith, your first question of the morning for Bart Keeler.
Well, I was literally going to ask about this situation because of, the impact that it could have had last night. It ended up not, mostly because Mbaizo lost his mind for the second straight round.
That was the dumbest second yellow card too. Like, bro.
Yeah. The first one isn't any better because
No, it's not.
He gets fouled, gets up and two-hand shoves the guy down, and at that point, like, he's giving you a yellow. But thinking from the perspective of a player, I would be thinking, I'm on a yellow now, and that yellow is not exactly like, it's not a dull yellow. Like, he's going to be keeping an eye on me. So what am I going to do? I am going to rip this guy down to stop a counter, and I'm going to do it in the most obvious way possible. So my question is for stuff like that. I understand the argument that, like, it's the second minute, you don't want to impact the game, but if I can draw a loose parallel to baseball, if it's not a foul in the second minute, if the other team commits a similar foul in the 30th minute, I feel like I would understand their frustration that I did the same thing and I'm being sent off. He did that and got a yellow card in the same sense, like, in baseball, if somebody gets plunked, you see managers go out and argue like, hey, you can't warn everybody because now my guys can't pitch inside. Basically, they're going to be worried that if they do, they hit somebody. I mean, how do you manage? And I don't know if there is an easy answer for you, but how do you manage something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that going back to last night, the referee didn't not respond. He called the foul very quickly. He gave the yellow card. I mean, the yellow card is supposed to be something that you show to say, like, yo, every single person here, that thing, not cool. Right? We have set that standard of, like, don't do this. So to your point, I mean, I think if a LAFC player had done something similar, well, they've been warned. You know what I'm saying? So you could get that yellow card, or it could just be red because you've been warned. You saw the bad thing happen. You saw the referee say, don't do this to that person. It wouldn't be out of pocket for the referee to give a red card for something similar later on in the game. That said, I would understand why that person or team would feel aggrieved because what happened in the second minute probably should have been a red card.
Nick Alifi, go.
I have so many. I'm of two minds about this. One, because I have such tremendous respect for the absolute BS that refs have to put up with. I've watched Bart officiate games, youth games, and the psychotic parents that he has to deal with. He also has to deal with me, unfortunately, trying to bribe him. Which he always turns down. For the record, anybody listening,
keep it fair.
One time has he ever accepted any of my bribes.
Maybe you're just not bribing him with the right stuff.
No, he's not.
I guess not. But
I'm way more interested in food or coffee. So
that's right. So I
was about to say, you got to go to a good bakery or something early in the morning.
Oh yeah, I'll make that happen. Don't you worry about that. I got the places to make this happen. But I would say that the maddening thing that I'm seeing out of officiating in the U.S. right now, it is maddeningly inconsistent. It drives me absolutely insane that you get such a vastly different experience game to game. Like internationally, you'll see, of course, dips in form and those who are performing at a high level, and you'll get one or two personalities here or there that are just like, okay, all right, buddy. But in the U.S., it is just mind-bending, that level of inconsistency. And that seems to be just accepted as part of the process with pro. And I have zero clue on how to fix it other than completely just annihilating them on social
Well,
media.
Nick, I'm hopeful that, so I guess to give some background, way back when, before COVID, we would do this thing called meet in person. And we would have trainings in person. Now, they still do that for for a lot of the referee clinics, and they've gone back to that. But I think the problem was way back when, and like when I was starting back in 2006, yes, you had curriculum passed down by US Soccer, but most of this was handled at the state level by state instructors who had been taught by state instructors before them, and a lot of times by people who never really played the sport and were just referees. So I'm hopeful that this will change now that US Soccer has a much higher level of control over the curriculum. Obviously, much easier to pass out nationwide curriculum when you're doing a lot of stuff online. They've moved to a lot of so you'll go in person now to do like your actual training to understand, like, okay, this is how you signal for your flag. This is how you blow your whistle. This is how you do this on the field. But the actual laws of the game and instruction behind that comes online. So that hopefully will help kind of standardize things across the board, because to your point, Nick, before this, it was 50 to, California and New York have like 3 youth soccer organizations within them. So, however many, certifying states or youth soccer associations or whatever, they had a lot more control over referee education. And so what that has led to is, however many that is, that's how many perspectives we've gained on refereeing. We also, unlike a lot of other sports, soccer referees have such license to interpret the game, right?
Mhm.
I know we've especially with the NFL recently, we've been very unsure what a roughing the passer looks like or pass interference looks like.
Harry, what is a catch?
But that's because referees are trying to grasp the forced interpretation of this rule. Whereas in soccer, every referee sees the game slightly differently. Every referee sees the decision making slightly differently. A foul in basketball is a foul. We don't give advantage. We don't have yellow cards or red cards. Yes, there are flagrants and all with that, but even that, like, you get to go to a monitor and review a flagrant or technical. Those are like no duh. You get to go do that. It's actually kind of nice. So referees having to make those yellow to red card decisions right in the moment, especially, or not at the pro level, but balls in and out of play, goals, all these things. It's hard to understand all the factors that go into a decision that you get to make on the field. And we've got 3 people chasing 22 others. It's a lot. So to your point though, I'm concerned that pro has not been able to get a better standard. I also think a lot of that has to do with MLS being such a variable league. The fact that we have 28 teams, right, or whatever we're at now, 29. That's more teams than any other league, more games than any other league. So the amount of officials is just, there's more.
Mhm.
We have a lot of teams who play wildly different styles of play, with a lot of players who are at wildly different levels of skill. Johnny Fortune and Thiago Almada are on the same field at the same time a lot of times. You know what I'm saying? Like that is that's the difference. Shoot, we have Luis Araujo and Thiago Almada on the field a lot of times. That's a vastly different level of skill. So,
There it goes.
it's one of those where like MLS is just such a weird, not even melting pot, but just like casserole of a lot of different things that may or may not go together.
It is a lagniappe. It is a ruse.
Yeah.
You're saying. Armando Villarreal will be the man in the middle at DRVP and K this weekend for the rec.
I do have one thing from the past game in Nashville that I was annoyed about, and
Okay.
maybe I'm the only person. So it was in the first half, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure, because they were attacking. We were attacking at us, and Dax McCarty cleaned out. I think it was Almada, and Yeah, it was Almada. On an attack right through the middle. Dax McCarty just cleaned him out, but the referee allowed an advantage because we did have an advantage. And then he came back and gave a foul because we didn't have the advantage. But McCarty somehow escaped without a yellow card. And that was mind-boggling to me because it wasn't just that it was stopping a promising attack. It was a yellow card. It was a reckless foul.
Mm-hmm.
And McCarty somehow came out unscathed. And that, to go back to kind of what we were talking about previously, of game-changing decisions early in a match. If McCarty is playing on a yellow card the rest of the match, that is a game-changing decision that he has to make. Yep. But it should have been made. He should have been given a yellow card for a reckless foul and stopping a promising attack on a player who continues to get fouled without getting really any real justification. I know Jason rants about this all the time because it's very true. But that was the perfect opportunity to give a yellow card for a bad foul and stopping a promising attack, and the referee chose not to.
Just give him the protection you give to Hani Mukhtar, which is appropriate. I'm not saying Hani.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the players is actually going to go on to make a lot more money and has won a World Cup. The other player, plays for Nashville. So,
Hani Mukhtar might be the best counter player in this league.
Absolutely.
And he is an absolute wizard on the counter. He is so good at finding space, at even at his hold-up play. Like he's stronger than you would think he is. He does everything so well, but man,
he's the perfect player for Nashville.
Oh man, he is. It's funny because we were talking after the game about Akiloba not sticking. I'm like, I still don't know why Akiloba didn't work because he went back to Mexico and it's been working. Yeah. It should have worked. It just didn't. But yeah, it's the frustration you have with Barco as well. And I know Barco is still polarizing to people here, but I mean, guy gets hacked down. And look, I mean, the yellow card I didn't like the yellow card. We talked about this during the game. I didn't like the yellow card on Brooks Lennon. First of all, I didn't think it was that egregious.
Well, and that's the other thing too. Absolutely,
but it impacts how
you gave that yellow card to Brooks Lennon, but you didn't give it to Dax McCarty, and Dax was a much more intention. Like Dax was the typical I'm just going to destroy this guy and pick up a yellow to do whatever. That should have been a yellow card if you're going to give Brooks Lennon a yellow card.
Dax McCarty is at this point, and I like Dax. Like he's been a good player in this league for a long time. But sorry, Rich, you can cover yours if you want to. I know we talked about this last night in the Discord. It kind of feels like Dax is where Bedoya is, where he doesn't have the legs anymore, and he's got to have that foul in his back pocket because he can't stay in front of you.
Yep. Reffing down here, and I know we're going to go past 2 hours this morning because we still haven't touched a bunch of stuff. All right, so next thing on the board, integrity. And the reason I bring that up is because of what happened involving Jurgen Klopp and Paul Tierney. Jurgen Klopp has been charged with improper conduct by the FA for comments he made about referee Paul Tierney after the win over Spurs. Quoted as saying, "I don't know what this man has against us," after he was shown a yellow card by the official for his celebrations. It was divulged that Klopp apparently said, without you, after they scored. And also the PGMOL, the Prem's version of Pro, checked the audio from Tierney and thought that there was nothing that was worthy of bringing Tierney up on any kind of a discussion. So they checked that audio. When it comes to integrity and objectivity, Bart, how, when it comes to you and your peers, obviously it is one of the tent poles. It is one of the tent poles that you guys really pride yourselves on when you're out there and you're officiating. How often are you challenged about your objectivity, and how do you best handle a situation like that?
Well, I mean, you're supposed to self-select out, right? Like and I know the Premier League tries to keep officials who might have a possible, bias from a game, a conflict, sure. Yeah. Tierney obviously gets to referee every Manchester game somehow. I don't know how that works. He's screwed Arsenal over more than times than we can count. Still thinking about it wasn't him, but still thinking about what would be if the VAR decided to, remember to draw lines on a field. But whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the problem is like biases come from a lot of places in refereeing, right? And I know this from refereeing kids for a long time. Like I'll have, if I'm at a club, I mean, for example, Nick, you've seen me at Rush for a long time. I mean, I've refereed a lot of coaches for a long time. I've refereed a lot of kids for a long time, and I've seen them from the time they were, 11 till they're 18, some of them. You do understand how people play. So sometimes you go, no, he always dives get up. Or sometimes you go, oh, well, he didn't really mean to do that because I know there's a lot of biases that come into play as you're refereeing. Because again, we're human and the laws of the game are intentionally written to be direct, but vague.
Mm-hmm.
And so unfortunately they do come into play a lot. They shouldn't at the professional level because you're there to do your job, and you should be well trained in decision making that doesn't require those.
Mm-hmm.
But to say something that like clearly, yeah. Surprised that was caught on said. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, those kinds of things. Nick, what else is on your mind with Bart this morning?
I think Bart covered it. I really do. I think because that's, I think the great concern is that if we have, addressing inconsistencies in officiating, the acknowledgement that they will be there, right? But what can we do to reduce the discrepancies in how the game's called? I think that's fine. And acknowledgement that refs are human. So, and also fans, especially parents, good God, I'm tired. If you complain about officiating, the state of officiating in these United States of America, and you go out on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning and you proceed to berate a 13-year-old official, you are part of the problem. Because
and then complain that we have no good officials. Yes,
correct.
100%. This is exactly what they do.
Because that 13-year-old may have gone on to be an incredible official and yet says, Mom, Dad, it ain't worth it. Or Mom and Dad say, yeah, it ain't worth you going to these games this early in the morning and getting chewed out by these psychos. Because that's what a lot of you are. You're psychos because you care more about the, Jimmy or Jane, being onside and scoring a goal rather than, I don't know, them getting out and, learning the game and loving the game and having fun with their teammates. So some of you guys need to quit being psychos to these kids out here being officials. And, in that respect, I will say that I have tremendous love, especially for the younger officials out there who are just doing the best they can to, earn a quick buck and do what they can to show their love for the game. So that's all.
Yeah, not to get into politics down here either, Nick, but you complain that kids don't want to work these days.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then you have kids who want to go out and work, and all you do is berate them for not doing the job that you think that they should be doing because they're 13, 14, 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Bart, how long does it take to set up the VAR system for a U12 game?
Well, it depends on who you ask, because if you ask one of the parents, they'll go, we got this VO, those VO cameras. We got this one on camera that he's actually on side. And I go, cool. That's neither down the line nor at the precise moment of the kick, but that's great.
Jesus, awesome. A lifetime of filming youth sports in my 20s came down to just an obscene amount of heartburn whenever something would happen and parents would yell up at me like, "Did you get that? Was that the right call?" I'm not gonna tell you.
No.
Out of spite.
Yes, and there is a baseball league out there that has a rule. If a parent yells at an ump, they've got to be an ump themselves for a couple of games before they're allowed to watch their kid again. I think that would be an interesting love when a ref hands a parent a whistle and watches them cower. I mean, It's like, you want to do this? Okay, here, let's see it right now. You call them out, and that's what you're staring at. First time Nick said this, I went full chill watching and coaching my kids. I'll politely ask them to talk as the coach. David says no negative talk anymore from this guy.
Wow, love it.
Well, and look, there's no problem with asking a referee to explain something in a calm, respectful manner, especially after the game.
Yeah,
because some things absolutely need an explanation, right? Like, hey, this was this. What was your reason for that? Or like, hey, you didn't call that like foul here. What was your reason? But you can't then get mad when you don't like their answer. I had a coach who, he said, hey, what happened there? Why didn't you call the penalty? And I was like, well, I didn't think it was a penalty. He goes, oh, that's not a good enough answer, and continues to yell at me. I'm like, I told you I didn't think there was a penalty there. Like, I didn't see a foul. I thought that the player got the ball. I'm also running to catch up after 16, 17-year-olds who are chasing down a long ball over top. So I'm sorry that I wasn't in the best position. I look at my AR. They don't put their flag up. So, no, we didn't think it was a penalty kick. We didn't think it was a foul. That has, like, you have to then accept that answer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, if the answer isn't what you like, that doesn't mean that the answer isn't invalid. It's just you didn't like to hear it.
Yeah. Two other things.
That happens more times than it should.
Yeah. Two other things here at Reffing Down here this week at Bartimus Prime 19 and at the Soccer for USPOD. What did you think, Bart, about Jordan Pickford's information on PKs that was on his water bottle?
Yeah, why not? Do it more.
Okay.
Love it.
We use literal, like, have you ever seen how many pitchers go out, especially coming out of the bullpen? If they know they're going to be facing, 6, 7, 8 hitters, they'll have a piece of paper in their back pockets that's a quick scouting report.
Yeah.
You see them go to it. They step off the mound.
Why
they look at
not?
the piece of paper, shove it back in their pocket.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
The other thing I wanted to talk about, Bart, was with you specifically, is Ricky has put in a link to the 50 most valuable soccer clubs on this planet. Atlanta United checking number 18, according to our friends at Sportico, ahead of Lyon, Roma, Club America, Ajax, Chivas, Napoli, West Ham, Benfica, Leipzig, Everton, Porto, Atalanta, Eintracht Frankfurt, Leicester, Flamengo, Sevilla, Lazio. Those are the other clubs, the other non-MLS clubs that they are more valuable.
I don't see Wrexham on this list. Weird. I thought they were the biggest club in the world.
Give it time, brother. $45 to $275 to go see their friendly against Los Dos in Carson, California. And if you have an American Express card, you can get in the queue early on. One other thing that I wanted to discuss with you this morning, it had a direct impact on what Jason and Jess are doing currently in Macon. Georgia High School Association upheld a suspension of a Paideia School top soccer player ahead of last night's soccer championship, which they did in fact win, who complained he was subjected to a racial slur by opponents. The head of the state's athletic governing body also said Armurchie High, whose players were accused of lobbing racial slurs at Paideia players during last week's state semifinal match, would not face any sanctions. GHSA Executive Director Robin Hines from Ernie Suggs at the AJC, quote, "We are following our rules and going by the game report and officials. Ejections are not reviewable." Hines added that while parents and members of the Paideia squad reported hearing racial slurs, the game officials never reported that they heard them. Quote, "The officials did not hear anything. It was reported to them, but they did not hear it. If they had heard it, they would have sanctioned it. All we can go by is what the evidence shows," end quote.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the unfortunate reality is if I don't hear it as an official, I can't just eject someone because you said they said something. I mean, it's unfortunate. That doesn't mean that, we shouldn't be listening for it later on. I've had that several times where, I notice that a player and a spectator might be saying something to each other. It's something you just have to look for. Obviously, at the high school level, you can't just be like, "Hey, spectators, don't talk to the players." It's the whole freaking point of high school soccer.
Right.
But it's unfortunate the referees weren't aware of that. They probably should have been. I'll go as far to say that, but again, there's a lot of things going on a soccer field, and we can't always be concerned with what's coming from the stands, unfortunately.
How prevalent, sadly, are these kinds of things in today's game?
Well, I mean, again, in high school soccer, hopefully not the racism stuff, but I mean, the heart of high school sports is, students dogging on other students, and trying to affect them from a game standpoint, with be it insults or whatever, talking about your mom is one thing, talking about your race is a whole different story entirely. So, I mean, at the high school level, it's commonplace. Again, your job as a referee is to try to be cognizant and aware of those things that are said that shouldn't be said. It is hard. It is hard because, again, you're focused on the 110 by 70 yard field that you're on, and the 22 players plus coaches and a substitutes. Like that's a lot to keep track of as it is, let alone the 100 plus people in the stands. So, like I said, I wish the referees would have been more in tune or attuned to it, maybe, but it's unfortunately things like this are going to be missed. And at Georgia High School doesn't have the ability to like truly investigate this,
Right. You're going by you're going by what's there and what's being reported to you, and you're going with the evidence on hand. And since you, as an officiating crew, have all of these other things going on, it ends up being anecdotal when it comes to this kind of stuff. And and since there is no concrete evidence in a case like this, you have to go by what the school does in their independent investigations. The reason I asked is I didn't know how prevalent these kinds of sad discussions are on the pitch with you these days. How many times do you have to be pulled aside? How many times have your friends had to be pulled aside in these discussions to go, man, you won't believe what happened in the match yesterday. This, and this happened.
I mean, again, I think I'm fortunate that I don't have to deal with this that often.
Right.
I do have at least once a game have to remind parents to not talk to players and parents not to talk to each other. But that's more of I try to catch it early and give a warning.
Okay.
But at the levels I'm refereeing at, be it the ADSL level or the, ECNL, that is easier for me to control because they're by the field, right? And there's fewer people. Again, at this high school level, I don't know how it wasn't heard that they said that, because I mean the stands are usually far from the field, so they do have to be yelled.
Right.
But especially players to players, I don't know. They could say something to each other down the field that I'm not even watching.
Right.
Because the play is on. If something happens, while they're scrumming for a corner kick or right after that, and the ball's been cleared and I'm running the back way, and I don't see or hear that happening. It's unfortunate that stuff happens. Trash talk is going to happen all the time, but this is unfortunate because it should not happen.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, Georgia High School doesn't, unlike the professional leagues, like, well, maybe not Serie A, but Premier League or others, they do have the ability to investigate this stuff. And I mean, MLS did it. We just had one of these happen in MLS, right? Where the official tried to investigate, but like we can't go by he said, she said on the field,
right?
We just can't, unfortunately.
It's such a can of worms to do he said, she said like it is. You can't. To Bart's point, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't sit there and they said that happened, so we gotta you can't just what are you gonna do? Suspend them?
Yeah.
You can't. Doesn't work that way.
It's similar to like if someone were to say, oh, well, she kicked me. And it's like, okay, well, I didn't see it happen. Like if that happens, how many times that happened on a corner kick or a set piece in the box where someone gets a cup check or someone gets something happen. I can't see all that. I can't, so I can't go by, oh, well, someone comes up to me and says, oh, well, they did this during the corner kick or they did this after this. I'm like, sorry, I'll try to look for it, but I can't see it. I can't hear what I can't hear. So.
And that was why I wanted to bring it up as a news item that sadly we have to talk about these days and all this kind of stuff. We barely got into USM&T and Crocker and substitute teachers and all that kind of stuff, but that's the beauty of all of this. We just did a full reffing down here.
I know.
Bart.
There's a lot of listen, refereeing needs to improve in this country. There's a lot of ways to do it, but actually having conversations to understand where the referees are coming from is better, because I think we get a lot of that in other sports. Who have, by the way, I think those sports have like very standardized and strict pathways, whereas soccer is evolving in this country specifically.
And that's why I wanted to have you on in this capacity, in your dual capacity. I wanted to have you on so folks can understand.
Now we've got a discussion in the Twitch pitch about
water polo.
How terrible people were as players doing to each other.
We have multiple water polo veterans. The Discord has been the Discord has been marred numerous times by water polo psychopaths, and it's amazing how insane water polo players are.
It's the hardest sport I've ever played in my life.
Dude,
it's a collection of attempted murderers thrown into the water just to see what happens.
Pretty much, yes. And to answer the earlier question, De Zerbi to enter scares me half to death. I'm not angry about it because at least he's not going to Juve, but it scares me half to death.
I do want to, Burn, thank you. You've mentioned that twice. Yeah, Arsenal women, just unfortunate. The goal that we conceded to lose was unfortunate, but the fact that we've lost about 7 players now to catastrophic knee injuries this year alone is insane. And the fact that we still made a Champions League final or semifinal is a testament to those women. And what really sucks, and this has been a theme, I mean, I think Fran Kirby's out now as well.
Yes, she is. Absolutely.
This Women's World Cup is going to miss a lot of superstars. I mean, Miedema's out. Beth Mead is out. Leah Williamson out. Obviously, those Arsenal players. Kirby's out. Swanson is out. And there are others that I can't even think of off the top of my head that are going to miss because of catastrophic knee injuries caused by wear and tear, sped up by people pretending that COVID was something that didn't happen, and we just needed to get back to things as quickly as possible and shove it all together. So.
Crazy happens.
Yes. So once again, Bart, what's the latest with Soccer for USPod?
I recorded an episode last week, and I've been traveling, so I'm going to hopefully get it done tonight before I travel to Miami.
So are you gonna stay for the twos match at DRVP&K on Sunday, or are you coming home after?
Well, I technically do fly out Sunday night, but not until like 10 o'clock. So we will see.
Okay. Because Abby, I think, is going to the match.
Abby is. Abby keeps trying to get me to go. Abby is also not aware that she's competing with Bart just being on a beach for a couple more hours.
But it's after sundown. The sun is setting. It's just heading off in the other direction. It would only
man, just because the sun. Kenny Chesney taught us.
Yeah.
That just because the sun goes down doesn't mean the night's over.
Yeah.
Absolutely true. So yeah, we will have that. Yes, we'll have that. We'll have that game on the SDH network 6:30, a little before 6:30 on.
Yeah. Ricky, beach is beach. Exactly.
And so we'll have Inter Miami, CFII, and Atlanta United 2 a little before 6:30 on Sunday night from DRVP&K. Bart,
but if I'm there, I'll let you know.
Yes, and be very loud on the parabs.
Yeah,
so we can. You know that you and Abby are there. So. Once again, thanks for your visits on Wednesday. It's enlightening, and that's why I wanted to have your perspective on to kind of walk us through the plays of the week and perspective so folks can understand where referees may or may not be coming from in a certain situation and why things either were or were not called.
Real quick before I get out of here, I want to say a very sincere thank you and kudos to every Atlanta United fan who traveled up to Nashville this past weekend.
No doubt.
Despite what their fans have to say, the fact that they continually get clowned by the amount of Atlanta United fans who fill their stadium is incredible to me. It's a testament. I know we have free tickets through season tickets for season ticket holders. I think that has helped the traveling support, but you still have to pay to go there. You still got to drive up there or whatever. So congratulations, thank you to everyone who went, because that was cool. Sorry the team decided to, look, we'll get it eventually. So